It's 2026 and video games have never been bigger. Literally. They've never looked better. We've never had the number of choices we have today on what to play and what to play on. And yet people are paying hundreds of dollars for 20-year-old plastic rectangles that play games with 8 whole buttons. Retro gaming isn't just on the rise, it's mainstream and expensive, but still more popular than ever before. So today I want to talk about that rise, why it's everywhere, why it's booming right now, and why, if you're anything like me, it might have saved your love of gaming. Before we go any further, we should probably define what we even mean by retro gaming, because depending on who you ask, retro either means anything before the Xbox 360 or anything that didn't come with an HDMI port. Oddly enough, those two actually intersect because the original 360 didn't come with HDMI. For the sake of this video, when I say retro gaming, I mean anything 2 generations back, which works out well for Xbox, the 360, and PlayStation, the PS3, but not so clean for Nintendo because then it's the Wii U and sort of the 3DS if you fall into the camp that the Switch was its successor as well, but I think that works fine here too. Whatever definition you like, and whether you're playing those games on original hardware or emulating them on modern handhelds, if you're playing old games and having fun, you're doing it right. Let's get the obvious reason for this rise out of the way. Nostalgia. We all know it, we all love it, and sometimes hate it when it makes us do irrational things. For a lot of us, retro games are tied directly to our childhood, simpler times, when responsibility was don't forget your homework and not, oh god, my back hurts from shoveling ice. These games are emotional time machines. You don't just remember playing them, you remember your childhood room, your 13-inch CRT, the friend you were playing with, that anime you were watching at the time. How it felt to be excited about that one game you might get every 3 or 4 months. And when life gets overwhelming, retro games offer something modern games don't. Comfort. They're familiar, they're predictable, they don't demand complete focus and commitment so you can keep up with everyone else. You turn it on, you play, you smile, maybe throw a controller.
Problems.
Then you turn it off or put it to sleep so you can pick it back up in 20 minutes. That alone explains some of the rise, but not all of it. Because here's the thing, a lot of people didn't come back to retro gaming because they missed them. They came back because they were tired. Modern gaming can be exhausting. Massive installs, constant updates, battle passes, daily challenges. If you don't get the next big game day one or pay $20 more for the limited edition early access version, you feel like you've missed out and now you're too far behind to unlock those great weapons or unique skills. Sometimes you don't want a live service ecosystem. Sometimes you just want to stab Ganon in the face so you can feel something again. Retro games start instantly, have clear goals, they end. It's not all open world, massive expansions that never want you to stop playing so you keep the microtransactions flowing. There's something incredibly refreshing about games that were designed around tight mechanics, simple rules, player mastery instead of player retention metrics. And when you contrast that with modern gaming burnout, retro games start to feel less like nostalgia and more like self-care. Modern games haven't helped themselves much either. They launch in broken states, they cost more. The consoles cost more. They cost more than when they launched, which is crazy. They demand more from you while feeling like they deliver less. It's no wonder people inevitably gravitate to the familiar and cheaper option. The industry's been pushing for this always-on, internet-connected, you own nothing and will like it ecosystem for over a decade now. I think part of that inevitable and clearly warranted pushback is a reversion to the games that don't embody that mentality, and this renewed interest helped bring about the handheld revolution we're currently experiencing. This is where things really explode because retro gaming didn't just come back, it became portable. Between emulation, modded consoles, and dedicated handhelds, playing retro games has never been easier to dive into. You no longer need a CRT, original hardware, a shelf full of cartridges or CDs. You need a handheld and half an hour. And for people like me, this is huge. Handhelds completely changed how I interact with games. Suddenly, short sessions make sense. old games fit into my life. Retro stops being a setup and becomes a habit. And once retro gaming became convenient, it stopped being niche. It became normal. Now, I'm not going to discount original hardware or anything like that. There is something special about powering up that old console, seeing the boot up screen, and playing a game with the controller it was intended for. We may have iterated ourselves into a more or less standard controller layout, but retro consoles experimented a lot more with their layouts, and they don't always translate well to modern controllers. I still love all of that, and to this day I often get the urge to power up a retro console just to remember the experience or to experience something I never had the opportunity to do as a kid. Another reason for the rise? The internet won't shut up about retro games. Damn it. The internet has turned retro gaming into a discovery engine, a history lesson, a shared culture. People aren't just replaying Mario anymore. They're discovering weird PS1 games, forgotten RPGs, stuff that never left Japan and now have either fan translations or are just way easier to acquire than they were in the 90s or 2000s, either through eBay or the internet in general. Retro gaming became content, and once people see how creative games used to be, how much personality they had, and well, how much love they have from gamers, it's hard not to get curious about why Final Fantasy VII is so beloved, or why Ocarina of Time is still considered one of the greatest games ever despite being designed to be played on a Trident. Of course, we need to talk about the downside of this publicity and hype. Retro gaming got popular, which means retro gaming got expensive. It's been on the rise, but then the pandemic shot up the prices of, well, everything, but especially gaming. Part of that is because of knowledge. People suddenly became aware of the value of older systems and games, and so what used to be a $5 game at a flea market is now a rare collectible with a 3-figure price tag. Consoles people would just throw out are now going for nearly $100. There's a whole conversation here about speculation, grading, artificial scarcity, and while collecting is cool and preservation absolutely matters, let's be honest, a lot of people got priced out. Pokemon is an easy one to call out, and it's got its own weird hype above and beyond normal retro games, but every Pokemon game has skyrocketed. And it's crazy to expect anyone who wants to play something like Emerald to pay anywhere close to $230 for a copy to play, which is why emulation and handhelds aren't just convenient, they're necessary. They keep retro gaming accessible, and accessibility is the only way this survives long term. But what's amazing is that thanks to the demand for retro gaming, you now have companies pouring in tons of money to give us better and better experiences. If you look at emulation handhelds from a few years back, you'll see a very different landscape than you see today. They were cheaply made, severely underpowered, and lacked any reassuring quality controls. Now, they're powerful enough to run pretty much anything, especially anything retro. They have just as good, if not better, build quality and provide an amazing experience to those who never had these retro consoles or games to have that experience today. It's really amazing. I mean, where once you would struggle to play Mario World 2 on a handheld, you can now play Mario Odyssey on a handheld. Oh wait, I mean, you know what I mean. What's really interesting is that retro gaming isn't just about the past anymore, it's shaping the future. Modern indie games are borrowing pixel art, 2D design, old school difficulty, tight focused gameplay. Not because it's trendy, but because it works. Retro design philosophies remind us games don't need to be massive to be meaningful. Smaller, focused experiences still matter. Retro gaming didn't get left behind, it evolved. And because of that, companies are releasing their retro collections. Nintendo sort of kicked it all off with the virtual console, I would say, a way to play older games on newer hardware, and they've kept that going in one form or another ever since. Backwards compatibility's been a thing everyone seems to crave ever since the PS2 was like, yeah, of course you can play PlayStation games on here. And now modern consoles play retro games. But beyond console manufacturers, you have studios digging up their old games, and they're not always just re-releasing the old games as it was, they're giving them a nice new polish and quality of life improvements so you can enjoy retro games with a modern touch. Final Fantasy Pixel Perfect, Super Mario RPG, Dragon Quest HD 2D remakes, Link's Awakening, Spyro Trilogy, and even more modern retro games like Mario Galaxy, Xenoblade Chronicles X, the Wii U's retro, remember? Prime Remastered, Metal Gear Solid Delta, Donkey Kong Country. Now, some might call it a cash grab, and these games coming out at full price is a bit ridiculous sometimes, but it still shows that the demand to play retro games has reached a point where even the studios realize they're sitting on a mound of gold. So that's why I don't think this is just a nostalgia wave. I think retro gaming is here to stay because this isn't just about old games, it's about preserving history, respecting player time, reconnecting with why we fell in love with games in the first place, and inspiring the next generation of gamers by giving them an opportunity to experience something they otherwise couldn't. Retro gaming fills a gap that modern gaming often leaves behind. And as long as that gap exists, retro gaming will keep rising. For me, retro gaming isn't about pretending things were better. It's about remembering what worked. It's about sitting on the couch, handheld in hand, playing something simple, fun, and finished, and something that has a walkthrough because some of these retro games are tough. Like, seriously, where do I go from here? But then you realize, yeah, this is why I love gaming. If you grew up with these retro games, or if you're just discovering them now, I want to hear from you. What was your first console, and how do you play retro games today? Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.